Tzeporah Berman of Forest Ethics, next on Enviro Close-Up. Welcome to Enviro Close-Up. I am Carl Grossman in New York, speaking to Tzeporah Berman. She's a director and a founder of Forest Ethics, and she's out at the Bioneers Conference at San Rafael, California. Tzeporah, what is Forest Ethics?
Well, we started really in the early 90s as a coalition of organizations and individuals who were really worried about the state of our forests. You know, globally, 80% of the world's intact forests are already gone. The World Resources Institute reports that we only have 20% left. And the majority of that is in Canada and Russia and Brazil. In fact, those three countries are the only countries that scientists say have enough intact forests left to maintain biodiversity and natural ecosystem functions. So for North America, what's left in Canada is incredibly important because that's our air and water filtration systems. It literally provides the air we breathe and the water we drink. And there was a group of us who had been looking at these studies and knew that. And I'm a Canadian, and I was spending time in some of the rainforests on the west coast of Canada and really watching them come down. You know, Canada logs quicker than almost any other place in the world. And so we started wondering, well, why is this forest being logged and where is it going? And we were protesting the logging. We organized blockades up in an area called Clayoquot Sound on Vancouver Island I think it was in the early 1990s, 1993. And I remember at the beginning of the summer thinking, wouldn't it be great if 500 people came to Clayoquot Sound and helped us protect this incredible rainforest? And it was really a tipping point. That moment in Canada's history was really a tipping point on forest issues. And as a result of our organizing and the awareness that we raised, 10,000 people came to Clayoquot Sound, this really remote rainforest region, and over 1,000 people were arrested and put in jail. And it became the largest civil disobedience action in Canada's history. And at the end of that summer, at the end of all of that upheaval and all of us going to jail, and polls that were showing that, the majority, 87% of Canadians didn't want the region logged, the logging was continuing. And so we started thinking, well, this is public land. The public doesn't want to see it logged. People are protesting. Why is it continue to be logged? And what's the demand and who's buying it? And at the time, without a lot of resources, we were literally chasing trucks to try and figure out where this wood was going. Now we have more sophisticated research practices, but what we found is that the majority of everything logged in Canada is coming down to the United States as the Yellow Pages phone books, as catalogs and junk mail and lumber. So we banded together and we created an organization called ForestEthics. And we started doing what we call the markets campaigns, which is fighting for some of the most important forests that we have left by sitting in the boardrooms of major corporations from Atlanta to New York to San Francisco. Our most recent campaign was targeting Victoria's Secret because they were making 1 million catalogs a day from Canadian boreal forest, which stretches across the top of North America. A lot of people refer to it as the crown of North America. And it's the second largest forest left in the world. And it's also the breeding ground for billions of North America's songbirds and ducks and other waterfowl. So if you see a bird in Chicago or New York or California out your window, chances are it breeds up north in the Canadian boreal. And those forests are being logged at an incredible rate. And we found out that they were going right down into Victoria's Secret's catalogs. So we approached the company and they said, well, we don't really have time to deal with this issue. We make a lot of catalogs. We have to buy a lot of paper. It's got to come from somewhere. And so we organized people who are concerned about these issues from across the United States. They signed up on ForestEthics website and they organized and they sent letters to the CEO. We had over 10,000 letters sent to the CEO, and we did 750 protests in front of Victoria's Secret stores in a 2-year period. And now we're working in partnership with Victoria's Secret. And they are actually doing joint lobbying with us, with Canadian governments. I was just at a meeting in Ontario where we met with the Premier of Ontario and the Vice President from Limited Brands, who is the parent company for Victoria's Secret, said to them, well, I buy $100 million worth of paper every 2 years, and we're not going to buy paper from you unless we know that it's not coming from endangered species habitat, unless you're logging sustainably. And it was a great feeling to be in that meeting, because it's a whole different thing, when you have the power, the financial power of the marketplace behind you to do good.
You had a very effective advertisement in that Victoria's Secret campaign, didn't you?
We did, because a lot of what the corporations are worried about is their brand. And so when we do a campaign where we're trying to raise awareness, we look at, how does this corporation see itself and what are the images they use? So for the Victoria's Secret campaign, we had an ad that we placed in the New York Times and other papers that was a woman wearing lingerie. It looked like a Victoria's Secret ad, except she was holding a chainsaw. And it said, Victoria's got a dirty secret. And it had the information about where the paper comes from for their catalogs. And that caused a bit of a stir.
We're speaking to Tzeporah Berman of ForestEthics. You connect, and I think it's so important, global warming and what's happening to forests. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, it's really one of the untold stories of climate change and global warming, which is that globally, 20 to 25% of all of our greenhouse gas emissions, the emissions that are causing the warming of the earth and the floods and droughts that we keep hearing about, come from logging and deforestation and changes in land use. And really, because what trees are carbon, and carbon is held in the soil. So when we do major industrial development, road building and logging in forests, we're essentially releasing all of that carbon and allowing it to degrade. And trees also bring in carbon from the atmosphere. They sequester carbon. And that's why forests, one of the reasons that forests are so important, not only for biodiversity, but for us, to ensure a stable climate. And the logging in Canada alone every year contributes as much greenhouse gas emissions as all of the cars on the road in California. And I think it's really something that people don't know about. And so one of the things that we're doing is we've been releasing reports on this issue so people understand it. And we're going to be lobbying at a national and an international level to ensure that conservation of what's left of our old growth forests and, of course, tree planting in areas that have already been deforested is part of one of the strategies that we use to fight global warming. And so I think that people in their everyday lives need to think about these things. And because I think living in this era, we're responsible not only for what we do, but for what we don't do. And so that means taking a stand. And it means if you've never written a letter to your government official, I think people should write that letter. And I think that we should be really conscious every day of what we're buying and what our influence is. We can be talking to our relatives and to our schools and to our mayors. I think everybody in their daily lives, well, you can't spend all day dealing with these issues because you have to make a living and you've got kids. I have kids, I know that. You can do something, and we can do something every day, and that's what's necessary.
How do people learn more about the organization ForestEthics?
We have a website, www.forestethics.org, and they can go onto the website and they can get information about all of our different campaigns, and then they can also sign up and they'll get information from us as we run campaigns and they can engage in them.
Thank you, Tzeporah Berman. Thank you for being with us. Thanks for the work of ForestEthics. This has been Enviro Close-Up. I'm Carl Grossman. If you'd like to learn more about our Enviro Close-Up series, just log on to our website, which is envirovideo.com. Thank you for watching.